Ladies and gentlemen, you already know what it is. We are back tonight, and me especially, pretty in pink, as Fourth and Frames comes at you for week 5 as we talk about our stash, smash, and pass players. We do a redraft after the first month of the season where we talk about the top 24 players in fantasy football if we were to draft them today. I'm Rhett. He's Nate. He's Drew. Let's get it popping.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
And of course, to all our viewers that are here joining us tonight, we appreciate you so much as usual. Don't forget to like, subscribe, review, and drop in with us anytime a new podcast or short drops from Fantasy and Frames. Don't forget fantasyandframes.com. Drew's got rankings. Nate's got rankings. We've got waiver articles. We've got start sit articles. We've got college football fantasy. We've got fantasy hockey now. Like, we're doing a little bit of everything these days. So that's awesome. But leading off, like I always lead off with you guys, Nate Markham, how in the blue hell are you tonight, my friend?
I'm good, man. You know, it's the week just drags on through from Wednesdays at about, was that 10 p.m. Eastern until Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then I'm revived. I finally get back with my boys and we can beat our heads against a wall trying to figure out what the NFL is going on in this league.
Oh, yeah, hold on. Very accurate way of putting that. Just
Thank you.
And when we're talking about someone who is trying to figure out what in the MFNL is going on, Drew Scott, fantasy football aficionado, diehard, maven, colossus, whatever you want to call him. Several seasons in peril going on right now. Strangely enough, the analysis is can't miss, but sometimes the drafting ability could be a little hit or miss depending on the league. So, Drew, how the heck are you feeling right now with everything going on in your life?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man, because you find these leagues that you just care about so much. Like, not to say every league's not important, but you definitely have a ranking of which leagues are, more important than others. And, the Scott Fishbowl is obviously one I want to do well in. Not doing so hot. We have our listener league for Fourth and Frames for the first time. Not doing so hot. So, and those were two leagues that I was like, man, I'm psyched. I'm ready. I'm hyped up. I did all this preparation and everything like that. And it did not matter. But I've got one shining star of a team. Howard Bender, friend of the show, Fantasy Alarm, SiriusXM. He invited me to be a part of the SiriusXM Independence Day Invitational this year, which with a bunch of other extremely talented fantasy analysts. We drafted like around the 1st or 2nd of July, and then it aired on Sirius on the 4th of July. And 4 weeks in, there's 2 undefeated teams remaining, and it's myself and Howard Bender. And then we play each other this week. So there can only be one. And so that league has been a ton of fun. It's nice to have a league that you prep so much for and you were excited for. Have a team that actually at least starts off well. There's still a long season, so not to say that it's going to continue to go that way, but really excited for that. I got to cook up a little bit of shit talk for Howard, but I don't know if I want to go like the shit talk route or if I want to go like the pump him up, ahead of time, get the good karma on my side, and then do the shit talk afterward, assuming I win. I'm still trying to figure out my strategy. So I'm putting some thought into that. If you guys want to help me out post show with that and want to brainstorm some ideas, I could really use some workshop on that front, but I'm excited for that one.
I'll give you something right now. Let's say you go down early, hop into the group chat and just hit him with a good GG's. And hit him with that reverse karma. So that way you can ultimately, it never fails. 100% of the time or 60% of the time, it works every time. So
keep that one in my pocket.
That was my
60% of the time. Go ahead.
Recommendation too. No, I was going to say that's my exact recommendation too. I love it. It's
Yeah.
What could go
you
wrong?
go wrong. What can go wrong?
Nothing could possibly go wrong when you have these three minds working together. So, speaking of working together, let's go ahead and let's talk about some news and notes as we head into week 5. Guys, whatever's happening with Devontae Adams and this injury, it doesn't seem to be healing, quote unquote. He's not playing week 5, and magically enough, he's healthy enough to request a trade. Some stuff coming out on X/Twitter tonight that there may be a deal with the New York Jets that's close. Surprise, surprise. So let's just say hypothetically, Devontae Adams ends up on the New York Jets. God, how out are we on Garrett Wilson in that situation, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really good for anybody but Aaron Rodgers if that happens. I mean, Garrett Wilson's already, we're going to do our redraft of the first couple of rounds. I would be surprised if Garrett Wilson is in that top 24. We'll see how that shakes out. And then now you add Devontae Adams to the picture. I mean, it's certainly not what you were hoping for whenever you were drafting him at the back of the first, front end of the second round and drafts just a few weeks ago. So it's tough, man. I mean, he's still getting open. It's been some shit luck for him, really, because, I mean, he has just been going up against elite corner after elite corner to start the year. Like, the matchups have been brutal. And now that the matchups are finally going to clear up a little bit, it sounds like he's going to have a Devontae Adams problem. So I don't know. It's tough. I can't even really say that I would recommend buying low on him. I just don't know if that's a bet you want to make. I think you probably just let the Garrett Wilson owner handle that, and that's probably something I'm staying away from. I've got him in a couple leagues, and I think I'm just going to hold and see how it shakes out, and hope that somehow the attention that Adams brings and the scheduling soften up. Maybe Rodgers starts to go his way, but even that I'm kind of nervous about, because we know the connection that Rodgers and Adams has. And so, it feels like a lot of targets are going to start getting forced there, even though as far as getting separation and things like that, if you look at the average separation score on the fantasy points data suite, Adams hasn't been the separator that we've known him to be, over the course of his career. So, I still think I think at this point, Garrett Wilson is the better receiver, but I don't really know if Aaron Rodgers cares. So it's going to be tough, man.
Yeah, we're gonna keep on rolling. Trey McBride limited in practice with that concussion. Obviously, if you get into a second week of concussion stuff, it kind of gives you question marks heading into Sunday. Zamir White limited in practice with a groin injury. I think we're at the point where we are out on Zamir White and any relevance that he has.
Yes.
The CEH 21-day practice window has opened.
Nate doesn't want to skip over Zamir White.
Hold on. We're finally at the point, my man. I've laughed.
That train left the station a long time ago.
I've been home. I took a nap, had some breakfast, took another nap, went to work, came home, took another nap, and still out on Zamir White. So
yeah, that was I had my fair share of misses. Don't get me wrong, but that's one guy I'm thankful I was not in on in draft season. So that one, it feels good to win one from time to time.
I took him in the Scott Fish Bowl way back in June. By about early August, I think I was out on Zamir White. But, it took a little while for the rest of the community to come around and just be like, hey, he may not be worth it. When Alexander Madison, the second-year carries, we know how we felt about him in the past.
Not great, Bob.
On the show. Not great, Bob. CEH, the practice window opens 21 days. Nate, is this irrelevant, or does it carry some value, or are we just spinning our tires here?
It's not like he's really returning from an injury or of any sort. It's really that PTSD that he's suffering from, the mental health issues. And so to designate a return time isn't like just a get ramped up scenario. So from his standpoint, I hope he's okay, just because, I want him to do well and get back on the field. From a production standpoint, I think we saw Kareem Hunt last week get trusted in the one spot. On Sunday, I was talking about that I don't like Kareem Hunt last week because I thought goal line touches and plays around the goal line were not going to go his way. So I didn't think he would be comfortable enough yet. They do so many of those trick plays at the 2, 3, 4. And we saw Kareem Hunt integrated into those immediately. And so I have a lot more hope, hype, optimism, I guess. Kareem Hunt will be the majority, but all CH does is just, crowd that room and make it even less opportunistic. But I don't have much for, promise in CEH yet.
Yeah, and like Carson Steele, he looked more like a fullback last week. And Kareem Hunt, he didn't look bad. I was surprised. I had no. I don't even want to say like low hopes. I had no hopes for Kareem Hunt, but I didn't think he looked too bad. And I mean, Kansas City's offense is is good at making people look good, but that could be a role that he holds for until Pacheco comes back, whenever that may be.
Yeah, agreed on that. So good news in the tight end wasteland. TJ Hawkinson's practice window has opened as well. Guys, let's play a quick little this or that for tight ends for the rest of the year. Assuming he's healthy, Drew Scott, TJ Hawkinson, or Dallas Goedert?
TJ Hawkinson.
All right. Nate, let's go with this, and I'm going to give you some low-hanging fruit too. TJ Hawkinson or Kyle Pitts?
Oh man, it's got to be Hawkinson. He hasn't deceived us so much, fool me once, fool me twice. We know that whole adage with Kyle Pitts.
One more. Let's go a little bit higher up the list in terms of tight ends for the rest of the season. Drew, TJ Hawkinson or Sam Laporta?
I think I would still go with Laporta there. I know that he has left a lot to be desired up to this point. The touchdowns haven't been there. I just can't see that trend continuing. I mean, like I don't think he's going to go from having. We expected touchdown regression this year, right? Like the volume he saw, the touchdowns he saw, we knew it was coming, but not to this extent. Like now at this point, he's going to bounce back the other way. So I think I would still go Laporta there. But Hawkinson's a guy that coming into the season, I wasn't looking at much in drafts. You knew he was going to start off on IR, and then whenever he comes back, well, he's going to be catching passes from freaking Sam Darnold, right? And that was just going to be terrible, right? And now, now it's looking like not so bad. So, like a guy like Goddard that you asked first, assuming AJ Brown, Devontae Smith are healthy, I would rather deal with having Jordan Addison in front of you than those two guys. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is going to be the one. But, whenever it comes to that, if health comes to health, I think that Goddard and Hawkinson's close. But Laporta, the only guy that I really trust fully still, and I know, Nate, I'm sorry, but the only guy I trust fully in front of him still is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know Jameson Williams has been more involved, but it has still, ever since the week 1 game against the Rams, it's still been kind of hit or miss here and there. And I think Laporta he's due. He's the guy that I would be going to try to trade for. And then real quick, Albert, what's up, man? Robert, what's going on? Kyle Pitts or an open bag of Cool Ranch Doritos I found underneath the seat of my car.
How long have they been underneath the car? Let's just
what are they on a stale scale? Like are they still got
Does
some
it matter
to them, or
does it matter?
That's so we're doing stale Cool Ranch Doritos over Kyle Pitts, man. We are at rock freaking bottom.
One more I want to ask you, Nate. Hawkinson or Kincaid?
It's still Kincaid for me.
Yeah, I agree.
I do like I don't want to get off the Sam Darnold hype, and I think he deserves all the flowers we want to give him and comeback player of the year, et cetera, et cetera. But if we're starting the season from right now going forward, I have to project and believe that the Bills offense will be much better than the Minnesota Vikings will go, even with Kincaid having a little bit of a slow start. But the last 2 weeks have been pretty, I'd say, optimistic.
Yeah. Let's keep going. Tank Dell returns to practice in a limited capacity from that chest injury. I think he's a clear number 3 in that offense right now. There might be a little bit of ramp-up time. Evan Ingram still limited with that hamstring. Probably one of the biggest surprises in fantasy football so far this season. Brian Robinson didn't practice on Wednesday with a knee injury. Drew, assuming he's not a go, is there any running back that you would worth taking a streamer on this week in that backfield?
I mean, it's not a terrible matchup against Cleveland, so maybe you can stream the backfield, but I don't know if I would have any confidence in anybody. Like I think that if Brian Robinson's not there, it's probably just something that that I'm going to stay away from. I don't know if you guys disagree. I don't, and I mean, Eckler was dealing with health issues. Is he going to be back this week? Does anybody know about that? Like, because at that point, like I really don't want to start the third string running back for Washington. So if Brian Robinson's not there, I'm probably just staying away from the backfield. But in deeper leagues, it's an okay matchup against Cleveland. So maybe you have to, but man, I hope not.
Well, go ahead.
Let's say Eckler just limited with the concussion, similar to McBride. The one thing I don't know about Eckler is if he had on a non-contact jersey, because McBride, for optimistic standpoint, when we were talking about him before, he actually didn't have the yellow jersey on, so he was cleared to at least take a hit. So positive momentum, but I don't know about Eckler. And what were you getting ready to say, Rhett? You were all in love.
Oh no, I was going to keep going with the news and notes because we got to get going on these other things. Both Jacksonville running backs limited this week: Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. David Njoku limited with an ankle injury. Anthony Richardson limited, which has been a real heartbreaker so far this fantasy season. Bijan Robinson is ready to go tomorrow night, which is good news for those owners. We're still waiting for that breakout game this season. And probably one of the bigger ones of the week, probably the biggest practice window statement. Nick Chubb's practice window is open. Drew Scott, how optimistic or pessimistic are we?
I mean, he's already proven me wrong because I did not expect him to be back as soon as the 4-week window was up. Like, I mean, the dude tore like everything that was possible in his. Like, I don't know if he has any ligaments left, and it doesn't matter. The guy's a freaking cyborg. So he's already doing better than I thought he would be. So it'll be interesting to see. That Cleveland's offense certainly needs some help, and once he is back and running, would not be surprised to see them just start letting him tote the rock all over again. So I'm much more optimistic right now than I was a month ago whenever it comes to Chubb, that's for sure.
All right, before we get into our Smash, Pass, and Stash this week, Robert has a question for us, and it was a good one because I thought about making him my stash this week. Nate, what are we making of Tank Bigsby and the fact that he seems to be a much different player than he was last season so far?
Yeah, he looks good. Every opportunity I saw him with the ball in his hands, he made people miss. He had extra bursts that I don't remember seeing. But then again, I also wasn't watching a ton of Tank Bigsby tape. It was mostly, you know what, if he can't crack and at least get any touches over ETN last year, then I really wasn't too optimistic going into this year. But the offense is bad. We know that. They need to get something started. So it wouldn't shock me if he takes, like you said, as a stash and has upside for the second half. I still think it's not going to be a full role. I think it's more of a complimentary role regardless. But the one injury away, and Bigsby is a stud.
Yeah, and then just to go for this real quick, I am ready to fire up some Trey Sermon this week. I mean, I would much rather be firing up some Jonathan Taylor, but Jacksonville's the 4th best matchup for running backs. You can, you start everybody against Jacksonville. That defense is terrible across the board. But yeah, I mean, they've been the 4th easiest matchup for running backs so far through 4 weeks. So you can probably do worse than plug it in Trey Sermon, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And then George Play has a question in the chat. He says, hey guys, should I trade Jordan Mason for Bijan Robinson or Devon Achane? It's a non-PPR redraft. My other running backs are Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs. First off, well done with this running back room that you've built so far. I'm going to say this, and I'm just going to go ahead and lead this off. It doesn't seem like this Christian McCaffrey thing is coming to a conclusion anytime soon. So you probably have Jordan Mason for most of the season. And if you look at consensus rankings, he is the running back 1 in rankings this week. The Niners seem to trust him. He's getting 20-plus touches every week and doing a lot with them. I don't know where you guys are, but I'm almost inclined to ride this train for as long as possible right now. How do you feel about it?
Drew?
I would personally, I would trade Mason for either one of those guys. I agree with what you're saying. In the short term, Mason will probably be the better play, but unless you're of the belief that CMC isn't coming back this year, there is a clock on how long you're going to be able to start that. Where with Bijan and Achane, they've got roles for the entire year. So if I can parlay a guy that's going to end up turning into what I believe will be turning into a part-time player, or just a straight up back, if they just go back to giving CMC the keys, it's just straight up backup and a handcuff at that point. If I can turn that into an every week starter, I would do it for either Bijan or Achane. I would just tell you if you've got both offers on the table, pick your favorite running back and go do it. That would be my advice.
I don't know if I would. I like the idea. The non-PPR thing is what kind of keeps me a little bit away from Achane, just because the majority of his volume in terms of fantasy points has been driven by passing. And Bijan, not knowing exactly. I hate this workload scenario, and I think it's going to eventually tilt Bijan's way, and he can do the most with the ball. My question would be is, given the scenario with Jordan Mason's trade value, because I do agree that if Christian McCaffrey does come back, Mason is, I don't say worthless, but he's kind of worthless. If they're trusting him to come, CMC to come back with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, he's not going to step field. So why not maybe trade for, I wonder if there's a position more of need. Like you could, if you can get Bijan or Achane, maybe you can get a wide receiver one.
See if you can go get like
Jordan
AJ
Mason.
Brown or what are the Tampa receivers? Marvin Harrison Jr., one of those guys. See if you can, maybe cash in at that position. Yeah, because to your point, it's not like you're hurting at running back. with
Would
Barkley
you trade
and Gibbs.
Rhett? Would you trade Jordan Mason for Tyreek Hill?
Oh,
Oh,
interesting.
God.
No,
With the current quarterback situation,
not knowing either. You don't have a crystal ball in front of you. You only have your pink headphones. What do the pink headphones say?
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I think that's a close trade too. Like I think that's a really good name pool as far as that goes.
And he has one more, and also in a non-PPR league. Start one running back, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex out of these. Bucky, Tank Bigsby, Javonte Williams, BTJ, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, JSN, and Keon Coleman. Nate, how about you give us the running back you want to start out of these guys?
Oh man, I'm gonna go Bucky in this scenario. Just
my headphones.
oh, busted,
busted. Oh, that's perfect. So you would go Bucky between Irving, Bigsby, and Javonte?
I hate everything about Denver's offense right now, regardless of if Javonte's going to see the majority. Like there's a chance that Bucky Irving sees the least amount of work out of all 3 of those guys this week. But I think the likelihood that his ceiling is higher than all 3. Just that offense. I mean, the offense is humming, man. It's crazy to think that Tampa, with Baker's continuing to do it.
Yeah, they are. I can't agree with you only because I'm going to be telling folks in a little bit why they should pass on to Tampa running backs. Later on the show. So I would probably lean Javonte, but I get it. It's gross. So then we got 2 receivers and a flex. Well, I'm probably starting Amari Cooper, as gross as it is, because he gets Washington. I mean, you start your receivers against Washington. It's kind of a rule so far to start the year. They've been the best matchup for fantasy receivers. And then, I think I'm going with DJ Moore and Brian Thomas Jr. I would say so. I think that those 3 receivers are your 2 receiver and your flex. I think that's the easy, in my opinion. I think that's the easy choice. Is my 2 receivers in my flex this week are Brian Thomas Jr., DJ Moore, and Amari Cooper. I don't know. Would one of you guys put JSN over either of those? Because I mean, he's got a decent matchup this week as well against the Giants.
I don't think I would. The only thing that really stood out to me is somebody that I would try to avoid at all costs, though. Right now was Keon Coleman. I mean, there's just doesn't seem to be trust in that situation whatsoever. So there's definitely an avoid right there. It's Keon. I would say that much.
Okay, so Nate or Rhett, you got to break the tie because I went Javonte. Nate went Bucky. Who would be your running back start out of that group?
Based on matchup, probably Javonte, but I'm probably pinching my nose a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. All right, there you go.
All right, so before we get into our Smash, Pass, and Stash guys tonight, Underdog, formerly known as Underdog Fantasy, is offering free money if you use our promo code FRAMES. You'll get a 100% matchup on your deposit up to $1,000. And like we say every week, who doesn't love free money? So don't miss out on all the fun and all the action over on Underdog today. So guys, let's get into our Week 5 Smash, Pass, or Stash players. Keep in mind that a Smash player is a player outside the top 20 or top 15 running backs, top 8 tight ends, or top 12 quarterbacks that we're expecting to outperform their ranking this week. A pass player is someone inside the top 35, the top 20 running backs, the top 12 tight ends, or top 20 quarterbacks that we're expecting to underperform. NA Stash is a player that we like that is rostered in under 50% of sleeper leagues. So let's go ahead and get into these smash choices. Nate Markham, your pick for the week is coming off of a gigantic target share last week where injury has opened the door for him, and hopefully he's trying to kick it wide open and stay in that spot. So tell us a little bit about Dontavian Wicks against the LA Rams this week.
Yeah, there's a heavy percentage of people, I'm sure, that going into this week are going to have to invest a lot of their fab on someone that they had already dropped prior to this week, because there just wasn't room at the end of that bench, and there was worries that he wasn't going to see the field early enough, and everything had to come together. You know, you needed Jordan Love to come back. You didn't want an injury because you wanted natural progression. You know, you wanted to just manifest. You wanted it to go slowly into the season, and then by week 7, 8, Dontavian Wicks proved his trust to Jordan Love, and the talent played out, and he was going to be the potential young budding superstar that we all knew was there. But you know, is what it is. Christian Watson's out 2, maybe 3 weeks. Not 100% certain on the timeline exactly, but Dontavian Wicks, as you said, Wicks had a week, man. It ran the same amount of routes as Jaden Reed. He had an ADOT pushing almost 20. It's a 1 week sample, so let's not get absolutely carried away. Like he's the wide receiver 1 on the week, but man, when you can accumulate 218 air yards, which is a 40% share of the team led by Jordan Love, 24% target rate against the Los Angeles Rams secondary, that Kobe Durant is who we should be lined up with. Kobe Durant's just okay. He's not like horrible. He's the worst graded coverage corner on the Rams through PFF so far. But Wicks, if he did similar to what he had shown last week, which this is, you know, separation report over at PFF, he had an 84.62% separation score. And that's on 13 opportunities. So
right.
It's really not like this low, he got 7 opportunities, did it well out of the slot, did it out wide. So Dontavian Wicks against the Rams, I love it. I can't believe he was outside of really even the top 25, considering, pardon me for just 1 second to make sure. I think it was 31 is where he's at on Fantasy Pros. I have him as the wide receiver 25.
Yeah, I love it. It's, you know, I talked about fire up your receivers against Washington. You should also fire up your receivers against the Rams. So yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, Taylor's oldest time so far this year. If you're playing the Rams, start your pass catchers. Drew, another guy who came off of injury and really started to assert himself back into that passing game last week. May have gotten a little bit of a quarterback bump, though, with the quarterback change due to injury. Mm-hmm. So good matchup this week. Josh Downs at Jacksonville. Speak on it, baby.
Yeah, I will say this, because the cloud is around Anthony Richardson. It's real right now. Anthony Richardson led 1 touchdown drive, was on his way to leading another before he got hurt. Flacco came in, finished that up, and he didn't really do shit, to be honest. So, like, I know Flacco's a fun story, and he played great last year, but I like Josh Downs regardless of who plays quarterback this week. I don't think that it's a huge downgrade if it ends up being Flacco, but I also don't look at it as a downgrade if it's Richardson. So I want to get that out there. I think regardless of quarterback, I think Josh Downs is in a dream spot this week, so I don't care who's throwing him the ball. The Jaguars have been the second best matchup for fantasy receivers to start the year, and that's just because Washington has been slightly worse. The Commanders and the Jags have basically been 1A, 1B whenever it comes to being just absolutely awful with covering receivers. And to make it even better for Josh Downs, the Jags are currently giving up the 5th most points per game to wide receivers that line up in the slot. And Downs lined up there 95% of the time last week. I mean, that's where he lives. That's what he does. So I would expect more of the same here in week 5. So Downs coming off a week where he led the Colts in first downs per route run. He led the Colts in first read percentage, and he had a higher yards per route run than both Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce. So, I mean, he looked good. He's got a good matchup. No Jonathan Taylor expected for this game. If it is Joe Flacco, like, you got a veteran backup quarterback, I would expect them to trust the ball in his hands. If it is Anthony Richardson, same thing. I don't think that they're going to change their game plan too much. Just in terms of how much they plan on throwing the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if Shane Steichen throw the ball plenty against this Jags vulnerable passing defense with no Jonathan Taylor. And Josh Downs, look great, man. And the Jags give up plentiful points right there where Downs is going to be lining up all week. So I think that he's in a smash spot against Jacksonville this weekend.
Yeah, Josh Downs coming off of a really good week. And Drew, there's a question in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and let you answer this question as our Rams expert. Which Rams wide receiver would you rather have for the foreseeable future right now, assuming that is before Kupp or Nakua come back?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's either Puka or Kupp, in the long run. But talking about the guys that you have to choose from right now, I'm kind of burying the lead, but I'll just get into it right now. My stash for this week was Jordan Whittington. Last week, he went from being a part-time player to all of a sudden being a full-time player, and it's not a shocking thing. It took a little bit. I mean, I think he was like a 6th-round draft pick. He's a rookie, so it's going to take some time. But last week he had a 97% route participation. He had a 28% target share. He had a 26% air yard share. He had 8 targets, which led the Rams pass catchers, and ended up being 6 catches for 62 yards. So we know that Kupp's going to be out at least 2 more weeks. They said they expect Puka to miss another month. And I don't think it's crazy to think that Jordan Whittington ends up being the go-to guy in this passing offense until they get healthy. So even after waivers ran, he's only 16% owned on Sleeper. So, I mean, in a lot of your competitive leagues, he probably got picked up. But he's still out there in plenty of waiver wires. And so I think that, not only is this a stash for like right now, put him on there, but I think that you can play him this week, like with the route participation he had last week. Now they get a Packers defense that's been the 6th easiest matchup for fantasy receivers. I think you can go pick him up and you can plug and play him this week. And bye weeks are starting to get kicked up and things like that as well. So you're going to have to start filling some roster holes. So Jordan Whittington is the guy that until Puka and Kupp get healthy, I think that he could be the go-to guy. And then I think that he's the one most likely to stick with the full-time role after they come back as well, assuming the Rams stick with the 11 personnel they typically run with. I think he could end up being the 3rd receiver, even with whenever Puka and Kupp come back.
It's a good take, and that's a little preview of our stat section a little bit later on. So Drew will just run that back later and say, hey, he said Jordan Whittington. So Getting back to our smash players for this week, guys, I was very famously this offseason bullish on the guy I'm about to talk about heading into rookie drafts. And it was seen as crazy at the time, and I started to kind of back off of it. But Brian Thomas Jr. is very quickly starting to show himself as the real deal in Jacksonville and probably the best receiver on that team. Played 76% of snaps last week, had 6 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown, a 28% target share overall, which is just a crazy number for a guy playing his 4th career game. 35% of the wide receiver targets went towards him. And he had, and this is a crazy, staggering number, 59% of their wide receiver receiving yards last week. So about 60% of their offense in the passing game to receivers went through him. He is separating himself as the number 1 receiver in Jacksonville right now. And he gets a matchup against the Indianapolis Colts, where they are currently the 7th worst defense against wide receiver in scheduled adjusted fantasy points. So it all feels like it is lining up. I know Jacksonville does not look very good right now, but we're talking about defensively. Both of these teams seem to have holes in the passing game. So if you want another reason as to why you should start up Brian Thomas Jr. and maybe even Christian Kirk this week, and really pretty much any wide receiver in this game, because this feels like a game that is ripe for points, which means if these teams are going to be throwing the ball, and both of these teams have question marks at running back right now, whether it's Jacksonville having a 2-person backfield, whether it's Jonathan Taylor being hurt. I mean, we could see the ball thrown all around the yard this week. You could see Josh Downs have a big game. Pittman have some nice numbers. Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas Jr. both have good numbers as well. Guys, this could be a really fun game for fantasy pass catchers this week. And the thing about Brian Thomas Jr. that I maybe like the most is I don't think we've seen a real deal true breakout game yet. Like, he's been very good in spots. Like last week, 6 for 86 to the touchdown. Some people might consider that a breakout game. I think this is the type of guy that whenever you see the true breakout game, it might be in that 150 and a couple touchdown neighborhood. I think he's that talented.
He's got that in his bag, yeah.
Yeah. He's fast. Trusting him. And now is ranked still as Fantasy Pros ECR wide receiver 23 for the week, which feels like a steal, which feels like you're just, if you're starting him, you're almost guaranteed to outplay that. I see him more as a mid-level to high-level wide receiver 2 for the week. I think he's well outperforming that ADP. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. is just one of these guys that we are only going to see get better and better as the season goes on.
Yep, completely agree. I've got him inside my top 20. I like this game a lot for fantasy. Two defenses that have been have been exposed to start the year. So naturally, this will probably be a 9-6 dogfight that has no fantasy outcome whatsoever. So I can't wait to be disappointed. No doubt about it. I'm ready to get hurt again.
Trey Sermon, 20 attempts, 77 yards, and a touchdown. It's your big performer of the week, baby.
You got it. You got it.
All right. So staying with this game, let's go to our pass players. Nate Markham, for everything we just said about this game being big time for pass catchers, then you want to go ahead and just come on right in and poo-poo on the parade. So just go ahead and just crush our hearts. Go ahead, bud.
Crush your hearts. It's mine is right there. And I so much of Anthony Richardson this year that I was banking on, him being able to do it with his legs. And unfortunately, we saw last week that, had that hip pointer, apparently was injured, came back, first play that I think it was the first play they gave him the ball back, or they took a snap. He runs again with it, and decision-making wasn't exactly the brightest spot there. And then he left the game. And that's why I'm just passing. I think the upside 100% we see is there. Jacksonville definitely allows the most fantasy points to the quarterback. They give up yards on the ground as well. They don't have their starting linebacker who's been placed on the IR in Foye Oluokun. So they have this hodgepodge, but what they do have is an inserted linebacker for him named Chad Muma. And Chad Muma has that lateral speed to actually, if Richardson plays, his upside is strictly with his arm. There's one thing I don't want to do is trust Anthony Richardson's arm to win me fantasy weeks. And I'm saying that, cautiously. Sure. I know Drew, you just said he let him down, but when you have a completion, percentage that's barely above 50%, in baseball terms, we would call that the Mendoza line. I don't know what they call that. Hopefully it's not going to be called the Richardson line for football going forward, because that's not a good moniker. But I think with the injury concern, I think with just the rushing upside that should be limited in this, if Indianapolis is smart, they wouldn't do that. They would try to beat up the Jacksonville secondary and rely on, God, I'm getting ready to say rely on Trey Sermon. What the hell's happening?
About to say it.
N, F, and L's going on. But I think that's our new catchphrase, by the way, for this episode. But yeah, I just say temper or just flat out avoid Richardson this week. And maybe I'm wrong. And hopefully you guys start him, because it's the fade Nate scenario. And it's up 25. Fade Nate. It's easy to do.
The one thing he's got going for him is the matchup. Like this, Jacksonville they've been bad against fantasy quarterbacks. So he does have that going for him. But I mean, I was as big of an Anthony Richardson guy as anybody this offseason. And it's not been great. Doesn't feel good. So I get it, man. I get the hesitation completely.
Also been snake bitten by Anthony Richardson. First round Scott Fishbowl draft pick, Anthony Richardson, ladies and gentlemen. So we've all been snake bitten by the Anthony Richardson curse tonight. Also, Nate may have an answer for your Mendoza line. Tim Tebow, career 47.9% completion percentage.
That's the line. Yep. Nice. That's the one.
So we're going to call it the Tebow line from here on out.
The Tebow line.
It's one step over the Tebow line, sweet Jesus. One step over Tebow line.
That's so good.
Heading downtown to a railway station. Richardson's one step over the Tebow line.
Well done. Well done. That's great stuff.
All right, Drew, let's get into your pass players for the week. There is a lot of Bucky Irving buzz right now. You seem to be just, once again, ready to break hearts and talk about why the Tampa Bay running backs are on a void this week.
Yeah, I'm here to poo-poo on all that. And you it's a bonus round, because you get not one, but two players to non-stars. So what's better than hating on one player, hating on two players? Todd Bowles told us last week that Bucky had earned more playing time, and that's exactly what we saw happen. He played 42% of the snaps, which was the highest amount on the year. So you might be thinking, all right, now's the time I'm going to plug him in. I'm going to fire him up. And I don't think you should do that. Last week, Bucky and Rachaad White, they saw 10 targets apiece. They each finished with 49 yards rushing. They also split the carries inside the 5-yard line right down the middle. So I'm glad we got that all cleared up. White did run 10 more routes than Bucky. It seems like he still has the pass catching roll down. So maybe if you can try to predict that Tampa is going to be in they're going to be behind, try to do the game script thing, then maybe you can, project Rachaad White to have a bigger workload that week, assuming he holds down the pass catching role. But to make matters worse for this week, Tampa Bay is playing an Atlanta Falcons defense that's been the third toughest matchup for fantasy running backs on the season. And that includes matchup against Saquon and the Eagles, Alvin Kamara and the Saints. So it's not like that they've just, had 4 weeks where they haven't really been challenged. Like they've went up against tough running backs and the defense has stood up. So now we've got a Tampa Bay backfield that's damn near a 50-50 split and one of the toughest matchups for running backs to deal with. So for me, if I can help it, I'm staying away from both Bucky Irving and Rachaad White this week.
I mean, fair enough. And those are great points because there is a lot of Bucky Irving buzz right now in the fantasy community. And rightfully
long term,
so.
I agree. Like long term, I think that it's approaching 50-50. Like Bucky's creeping. I think we could live in a world in a few weeks where Bucky is on the front end of a 55-45 split, something like that. Like I think Bucky's a good guy to have on your roster. And I think that there are better days ahead, but I just don't think week 5 is the week for you.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. Drew, forgive me for what I'm about to do to you.
I know.
We're there.
I know.
We are at the point where an NFL head coach has gone full-blown high school football coach and said things like stats are for losers.
Don't matter.
in pertaining to this player. But truthfully, as we face the Tampa Bay Bucks this week, we're just going to call it what it is. Let's pour one out. Pour one out for Kyle Pitts. We're cooked. We're done. It's over. Stats don't matter, and neither does Kyle Pitts at this point. It's just looking worse and worse for the Pitts crew here in 2024, guys. And then he gets into a matchup this week, and the disappointment in your face is cracking me up right now. Oh, my God. Where he sees the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which have been the 10th best team against tight ends this year. Yet somehow, Fantasy Pros reigns eternal with their optimism, as he is the ECR tight end 9 this week. Whereas compared to the fantasy footballers, they have him down at tight end 18 this week. So one of these groups is going to be right. We'll see who it is. And the craziest thing is with Kyle Pitts is that he's played 68% or more of snaps in every game this year. And yet through 4 games this season, he only has 3 more targets than Cincinnati Bengals backup tight end Eric All for the season. And I'll talk about him in just a little bit. But all around, if we're being honest, it's just tough to invest in this Atlanta passing game right now. Kirk Cousins doesn't quite look himself. Everybody looks like they're still adjusting. Tyler Algier has been a pretty good backup. He's been solid so far. So it seems like they're going to start leaning on the run a little bit more. And even if we do trust the Atlanta passing game, it's strange to say right now that probably the most consistent receiver in that room has probably been Ray McCloud. That's not vouching for Ray McCloud whatsoever, but that's just saying he's probably been the best guy that they've had overall so far this season. So unfortunately for me, for you, for Drew, for the world, for fantasy football, and for the NFL at large, it just might be time to put Kyle Pitts on life support. We're not calling time of death yet, but boy, we're close.
Oh man, yeah, I'm depressed, and that's not to make light of depression like that. That's how much I've been invested in Kyle Pitts and believed in Kyle Pitts, and it's rough, man. It's tough. I've still got him in a couple lineups this week. I don't know why. I guess because every other tight end also sucks. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's why he's also still the tight end 9 in ECR. It's just like if Trey McBride isn't healthy, and if you don't have a Dallas Goedert without AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, it's like, what are you really doing at tight end anyway? Or Brock Bowers. So yeah, it's rough, man. We even got a challenger for Nate in the comments. Pass on Wicks. Well, 13 targets isn't enough. Those are rookie numbers. You got to bump those numbers up.
Yeah,
so
and listen, and I'm never one to argue with my coochie. So it is that is I usually give in to my coochie.
I agree with this take though. I agree with this. I think you should start Tucker Kraft over Kyle Pitts this week.
And
I
boy,
think you should.
Are you a pros pro or what, Drew Scott? Because
go ahead and hit the segue.
Nate Markham.
Actually, it's Scampers.
Let's get into our stash.
It's like Scampers is living in our show sheet and he doesn't even know it.
Mr. Scampers lives in our show sheet. He's been a day one A1 guy. He's just been with us all this time. He knows us so well.
He knows us
he
better
knew
than we
what
know
Nate Markham
ourselves.
was about to say before he even said it. So Nate Markham, go ahead and tell us about your stash play for the week and why Mr. Scampers is a genius.
Well, we knew Scampers was a genius prior to alluding to Tucker Kraft. And again, similar to Dontavian Wicks in that having Jordan Love over Malik Willis will cure what ails us. And he, first week back, looked Tucker Kraft's way early, often, and it paid off. I mean, 7 targets. Granted, that only, 13% target share, but for the tight end landscape, I'll take a 13% target share, especially when it leads to, 6 catches for 53 and a score. Granted, the fumble didn't really help matters, but it didn't. That's, I'm going to say it's a positive. It's not a positive that he fumbled, but the positive is that when fumbles happen, sometimes playing time can be a reduction, if you will. And we didn't see that necessarily. It's one game in, and I don't think it was as relevant. It wasn't a game losing fumble that I can say would have more impact, but Tucker Kraft and Jordan Love have had that rapport. And then when you can find a tight end, any tight end on any team that's capable of putting up double-digit target percentage or target route, plus the route runs and have a 6 for 53 and a score, I'd have to look it up. I'm going to venture to say that's probably the 5th highest tight end output on the season. I mean, that might be crazy. I guess I can do that while you guys talk after I get done with Tucker Kraft. But yeah, Scampers, good. Thanks for the layup. Tucker Kraft for sure. 49%, 45%. So 55% of you are sleeping, or
he should
people
be
have just given up at this point. Tight ends, especially. Can you drop? So you have Kyle Pitts on your team. Are you dropping Kyle Pitts for Tucker Kraft?
If there's nobody else on your bench you can drop, I think you can. Same thing goes for Mark Andrews.
I was going to say, ask that. Yeah,
exactly.
Same thing for Mark Andrews. Tucker Kraft seems like there was the question marks before the season, like, will it be Luke Musgrave? Will it be Tucker Kraft? That has been cleared up. There is no question anymore. And so you want the starting tight end in Green Bay's offense with how much they're throwing the ball. I don't expect them to throw the ball like 60 times every week, or whatever it was that they did last week. But, this week against the Rams, they just like the receivers, they give up points to tight ends as well. Like Tucker Kraft is in another really good spot this week. And the Rams are one of the highest neutral game script passing teams. Like, they're going to throw the ball. Green Bay's going to throw the ball. So I think you can go right back to the well this week. And if you have to drop Pitts or Andrews to make that happen, I think you can do it. As bad as that feels, I haven't dropped Pitts anywhere I've got him, just because I'm sick in the head and I never will. But that does not mean, that do as I say, not as I do.
And the fact that that our stash is potentially, not to allude to anything here, Rhett, but it's going to do another wonder towards the tight end position, where everybody looks at it and they thought this was that middle heavy league. No one's, no one tight end separated themselves for that one, but we all agreed tight ends 3 through 9, 10, 11, or 12. We're going to support the tight end position, and it's going to be glorious. And what happens? We have people like Tucker Kraft and Rhett, maybe another tight end that I can tell you I invested heavily in this past 2 weeks because of you.
Maybe because of Drew, because Drew had a brief drop on this last week. Before we get to that stash, though, Drew, anything else you want to add on Whittington for this coming week or in the future, or what?
No, I mean, just, he's still only like 16% rostered after waivers ran today. He's the guy you can plug and play this week, and then he could also hold the wide receiver 1 role for the Rams moving forward until Kupp and Puka get healthy, which is at least 2 more weeks for Kupp, possibly another month for Puka. So I think Whittington's ownership should be much higher. But no, I mean, if We had a question from Robert Thomas earlier in the show around like the 32-minute mark of who should you roster on the Rams from the receivers, and I went ahead and just spilled the beans for my stash. So just rewind to the 32-minute mark and you'll find it there.
Yes, indeed. So let's go ahead and get into the guy you briefly name dropped last week when we didn't have time to get into these details. And I'm here to give you guys the goods from the woods as to why, with the tight end hell that we're all living in this year, there is a little bit of joy on the horizon. And that little bit of joy on the horizon's name is Cincinnati's Eric All. I mean, as of right now, as I was doing the work earlier this evening, still only rostered in 4% of sleeper leagues. This is my guy. I'm going all in right now, getting him everywhere I can. He's seen 4 targets each of the last 3 weeks, has had 4 receptions each of the last 3 weeks. Probably the craziest stat he's had so far. He's only run 33 routes so far this season, and it resulted in 12 targets. That is a 35% target per route run rate, which is first among tight ends. He's fourth in yards per route run among tight ends at 2.41 yards per route run. He is second in first downs per route run at 0.147. All those numbers courtesy of friend of the show, D-Bro, Derek Brown. It just feels like that breakout week is coming for Eric All, and I want you to get in now before it happens. He played 63% of snaps last week, and that number has increased every week so far this season. It just feels like there is a 5 reception, 70-yard touchdown game that's coming for him very soon. And by the time that happens, it's going to be too late. So I'm just telling you right now, and I think both of these guys are going to agree with me on this, that Eric All is a guy that we should be investing in where you can right this second.
Yep. That was my stash play from last week. So if you didn't listen to me last week for whatever reason, please listen to Rhett this week. He's a great stash. The tight end landscape. If you haven't been paying attention to fantasy football and you're for some reason listening to this show, or if you're just one of the few lucky people that has like Trey McBride or Brock Bowers, and maybe you don't realize what's going on, the tight end landscape is a shithole right now. So you can do much worse than stashing Eric All. So yeah, take Rhett's advice and do that ASAP if he's not rostered already for you.
And to go back to the where was Tucker Kraft's week 4 rankings amongst all tight ends on the season? That was the 8th best finish of tight end so far. The 7 people above are all different tight ends. No one has replicated out of the top 12 multiple top 12 weeks. So
wow,
yeah, it's been pretty gross.
Yeah, it's messy. And speaking of
ready
messy,
to correct all of our mistakes from the the preseason.
Yeah, let's talk about something that we're hoping to clean up right now. We're gonna redo the first 2 rounds of a 12-team fantasy football draft 1 month into the season. Just to remind you guys what preseason ADPs look like heading into the year. It was CMC, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Garrett Wilson to round out the first round. Second round was Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison Jr., Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Devontae Adams, Devon Achane, Isaiah Pacheco, Drake London, Josh Allen, Josh Jacobs in round 2. And then round 3 was Chris Olave, Travis Kelce, Deebo Samuel, Nico Collins, Sam Laporta, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, Cooper Kupp, Rashad White, James Cook, and Lamar Jackson. I believe that gives us 37 people. But nonetheless, it just gives us a very good idea that looking back on this, guys, feels like there's some changes that need to be made right now. So how do you guys feel about trying to give people what would be a perfect 2-round start at this point if we were to redraft things up to this point?
I think it's a good idea as soon as I get it rolling, because Sleeper just went haywire on me whenever I went to start that. But while I'm getting this pulled up, I'll just ask you guys. Rhett, you'll be in the top left corner, so I'll just ask you: is there a clear 101 at this point through 4 weeks? Is there a guy that you think should be the 101, unquestioned, no doubt about it? Like, or do you have to think about it? If so, who are the players you're choosing between?
I wouldn't have to think about it. I think the volume, the opportunity, the production, the offense, I think the clear 101 right now is still in a redraft to Saquon Barkley. I just think he's been that good so far this year. I think he's taken goal line work off of Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts hasn't looked exceptional. They've had a lot of wide receiver issues in terms of injuries so far this season. And Saquon is still rolling and still looking unbelievable. It is a crime that he only had 10 carries last week. But as they head into the bye week, that means that going forward, he's going to be healthy next week. And he's been pretty good about holding it together so far. And I think with this offense and with how they run things and how Nick Sirianni tends to rotate multiple backs, this could be a very good season for in terms of Saquon Barkley's health and production.
Nate, any argument? Well, I mean, we're
No.
going to go pick by
No.
pick here. We're going to do it on our own, but I'm in agreement. I think Saquon would be the 101. And so no disagreement there for me either. Nate, I'll let you go next, man. If Saquon is the 101, who's the 102?
Yeah, I hate to say it's hard. It actually gets extremely challenging. Knowing what we know going into the rest of the season, the only I got to believe that at this point, it's easy to make a case for some of the running backs that are up there. Alvin Kamara is the number 1 point scorer. Do I think that lasts? Sure, I think he's going to be there. I worry about maybe getting banged up a little bit. He's already had a couple injuries. I'm going to go with the wide receiver position, and I think that we said this before the season started. Don't be shocked if week 5 or 6 we all look back and we're like, what the hell were we thinking? I think Justin Jefferson's my 2.
Yep, he's mine as well. I agree completely.
There you go.
And that may, I don't know if this is shocking at this point. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But at this point for me, I'm going receiver. After Saquon, I have a little bit of questions at running back. I got to go a decent ways down the pre-draft ADP, and Nico Collins is my wide receiver 2 rest of season, right behind Justin Jefferson. And I think if I was in a draft, I would take him 3 overall right now. I don't know if that's a hot take or crazy. I don't think it should be, but I haven't really paid attention to any of these like redraft or redos to see where that would be. But yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly separated himself as a wide receiver 1 in this offense, and I don't see any reason not to take him this high at this point.
Yeah, Nico Collins has been super good so far. Apparently on a pace to break a record in the league this year, which is just a crazy start, just a toward pace on his part. Once again, don't think he's maintaining that all year, but I mean, there is nonetheless a great start for him. 104, and Drew, I'm shocked you let him fall this far. I mean, 104 has to be Derrick Henry, right?
Could be.
My God. I mean, if we're looking at what Derrick Henry has done here for the Baltimore Ravens, some people thought he was cooked. I was in that number. I'm just going to say there are not many players right now in fantasy football that have not only boosted their value as much as Derrick Henry has, but has also single-handedly wrecked a passing game's value as much as he has Baltimore's passing game so far this year. I mean, this is a Derrick Henry-centric offense right now, and for good reason. I mean, if you saw the 87-yard touchdown run last Sunday night, I mean, there was just no question that he still has it. Like, he's still explosive. He's still powerful. He's still Derrick freaking Henry. So at 104, I think it's a slam dunk pick.
I'm very curious. I'm sure it wasn't Derrick Henry, but I'm very curious who Scamper is alluding to. We'll find out at the end of the first round that apparently there's a running back that isn't drafted in the first round of these redo mocks that should be. So we'll see. We'll see if we hit him or not. But Nate, that brings it back to you. Derrick Henry's off the board, 105. Who would you take here?
Yeah, I'm leaning on 3 different receiver or running backs. It's like I look at what they've done, and I think that the volume and the upside and the first 4 games have just decreased 2 of them. And I'll just say who they are, so there's not this, keep everything close to my chest.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Oh my gosh, what a temptation. But Bijan clearly should be the guy that I think at this spot right now, if you could go back and you can get Bijan at the 5, considering the offense is ticking upwards with Cousins. But what we've seen so far is that Tyler Algier is still being utilized in that offense more than I like. And Breece Hall has Braylon out. That is still, but
yeah,
I'm going to do it because he was a He was my guy, and I'm going to firmly put him at number 5, and that's because he is, like I said, he's the number 1 fantasy running back right now, and that's Alvin Kamara. 20 targets, 17 receptions, 500-plus total yards of offense, and 6 touchdowns through 4 weeks. I don't know, short of injury, that's I'm happy with that all day.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, man. And like you said, he was one of your my guys. Like you called this start to the year. And I know you drafted him in a lot of places, so you've got to be thrilled, with what you've seen up to this point. And you bring up some interesting concerns with Breece Hall, with Braylon Allen. I'm not completely off the wagon, but last week was definitely scary to see, at least that was in his range of outcomes. Oh, there we go. Henry was 1 at the end of the first. Love him at 4. See, you guys are so good at this, man. You guys are so good at this. So now for me, I mean, that leaves, there's 1 running back and 1 receiver that I would be choosing from here at 6 at this point. And I think that I would be comfortable taking CeeDee Lamb here. I think he's only the wide receiver 12 so far through the first 4 weeks, but I mean, unless for some reason the Cowboys did trade for Devontae Adams, the target competition is not going to be there. He's going to get loaded with targets. I think they're going to continue to run the ball, or they're going to continue to throw the ball because they can't run the ball.
Right.
And he still has both matchups against Washington in front of him. He hasn't got to play that Commanders defense that we love to play receivers against yet. And then 2 of his 3 matchups in the fantasy playoffs are the Carolina Panthers and the Philadelphia Eagles. For receiver purposes, are solid matchups. So, I think CeeDee at this point, he's my wide receiver 3. I think it's Jefferson's the wide receiver 1. I think it's close between Nico and CeeDee Lamb. So, I think at this point, with the Braylon Allen question marks between Breece Hall, that kind of serves as a tiebreaker there for me with CeeDee.
Yeah, CeeDee's been pretty good so far. That being said, for the 107 right now, Drew?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
For the 107, I'm just going to go ahead and go back to Twitter and a tweet that I dropped an hour ago. The tweet reads, Nico Collins going from fantasy 0 to elite is the power of a good quarterbacking situation in fantasy football. This is a Malik Neighbors ceiling tweet. 107 Malik Neighbors.
Okay. I don't mind that one bit. He was my next receiver as well. He was my next receiver up. So I don't mind that one bit, man. And what a time to be alive.
He is freaking unbelievable, isn't he?
Unbelievable.
Like, to see that he is doing this with, of all people, Daniel Jones. My God. What a dog. What a stud. This isn't even Louisiana LSU bias coming through right now. Everybody watching this guy is just blown away, and with good reason. I mean, unreal route runner, great explosiveness, just does everything well, and just has that little extra bit of FU that most receivers don't. So, I mean, at 107, with the way he's had start to his career, he's on pace for yet another rookie record season. I mean, it's hard to deny that guy right now.
Man, and so I'm trying to put on my draft hat and look at this situation and think, all right, if knowing a little bit, I'm sitting at the 8. I'm gonna stick with the LSU theme. I can't pass up on Jamar Chase at this point with all pieces working, the offenses there. If I'm looking at any of the wide receivers that I think this whole back half, mind you, from 6 through 12, if I'm drafting right now, knowing I have my pick of the litter of CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Jamar Chase, and then 2 or 3 of the other names we're probably going to talk about here shortly. I love it. It's amazing how this wide receiver like stud category can completely loop around, and yet 4 weeks ago, there's really, I mean, it's the running back position that we should have known better. We should know better than the running back position being consistent. Shame on us. We're stupid. But yeah,
speaking of being stupid for taking running backs, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to stop the slide. I would take Breece Hall at this point. But I agree with you. I would take Jamar Chase over him as well. If I was in that choice at the 108, Chase has looked great these last couple of weeks. I think it'll continue moving forward. But even with the Braylon Allen problem, I guess, if you want to call it that, I still think he's going to get plenty of work. I think that I think that last week the down game is going to be the outlier rather than the norm moving forward, and so I still feel comfortable in Breece Hall. I think the running backs that went ahead of him are accurate though. But yeah, at this point I would be taking Breece in the back of the first round personally.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to continue the running back theme because what are we if not stupid? There are not many running backs in the league right now that have 86 opportunities and 6 touchdowns through 4 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyron Williams is that person. And at this point of the season, I mean, the Rams are struggling offensively. They're finding wherever they can the passing game. Jordan Whittington, Tutu Atwell, you name it. The 2 constants in that offense so far have been Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams. There were some Blake Corum questions heading into the season. Question no more. This is a Kyron Williams backfield, and he appears here to stay through the rest of the season.
There you go, Rhett. You made Scampers happy, man. And yeah, this is, I don't have a white hair. My daughter gave me this little shark balloon. I don't have a white flag, so I'm waving the shark balloon.
Yeah.
I was wrong on Kyron Williams. I really thought, hey, you spend a day 2 pick on Blake Corum, surely that's going to factor into it. Kyron Williams was inefficient, and at times last year. None of that matters. Sean McVay doesn't care, so we don't care. And yeah, I mean, at this point, the dude is the slide that he took, especially whenever the news came out that he was going to return punts and shit like that. He became such a draft value if you believed in Kyron Williams. So if you cashed in on that, kudos to you. All right, so Nate, that brings you in at 111.
Yeah, it's rest of the season. The upside, like I so bad want to put some of the guys that I know I shouldn't do. ADP to be damned, and there is no ADP because we're establishing ourselves. But
yeah,
I still feel like this would be my draft hat, where it's like, hey, I know better, and I can wait and get some of these guys. We'll keep the running back train going because I still think that the overall, just the PPR floor of Bijan is there. I feel more comfortable than with any of the other names around there. If you have it on, say, running backs, and you start talking about the Jonathan Taylor, this medium ankle sprain, whatever they want to, not so high ankle sprain has me concerned a little bit. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is a nasty backfield, but cannibalization. And then you just throw in some of the other names that it muddies that just enough.
Yeah.
All right.
So you're going with Bijan?
I'm gonna go with Bijan there. Yeah,
I love it. I don't like you because you stopped me from being able to draft Bijan, and even in a redraft mock where it doesn't matter, I'm still looking to draft Bijan, and I can't do that now.
Exactly.
Sniping second round. Let's go.
Sniping a make believe. Exactly.
I'm tilting in we're mock drafting a mock draft, and you've still got me tilted over here. So you have got a gift.
Yes.
But at this point, I think that I think this is the guy where better weeks are ahead for him, and I think that the role is only going to get better, and we're going to get closer to what we expect out of Amon-Ra St. Brown. And so I would be taking Amon-Ra here. And that it was between Bijan and Amon-Ra for this pick for me, and so you basically just made the pick for me. So I think Amon-Ra is in for a I think that he's another guy that, if the rest of your league views him as a back of the first round guy, if you were to redraft right now, I think he's a guy you could go buy low on. I think he's a good trade target. So, all right, one round down. Let's power hour through this second round real quick. Rhett, go ahead.
All right, so we're gonna start off the second round, and we are in a little bit of a pickle right now because if we're assuming one QB, it may be a little bit early to go with a one quarterback. And there's a very clear tier of guys that have been taken so far. So I think the answer right here is probably Jonathan Taylor at the 201. I just think he's had a great start. I know there's a high ankle sprain injury right now, but going forward, there's no question that if Indianapolis wants to finish the season strong, they're either going to need a huge Anthony Richardson leap or Jonathan Taylor to carry that team. And as of right now, Jonathan Taylor feels a little bit safer.
Okay. You're a brave man with the injury he's dealing with. You're a brave man. Nate, keep the train rolling. Are you going running back as well?
I don't think so. I think if I have
No?
Bijan, no, if I have Bijan right now, I'm going to go hero. And at this point, I'm going to go. What we've seen is he has the wide receiver 1 upside. He's got a quarterback that can get him the ball. Marvin Harrison Jr. is
I love it.
just too electric. And I know some of the names there. If you're looking at the screen and you see Tyreek, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, and you're
Right.
thinking, okay, I mean, hey, there's a lot of what ifs in those 3 scenarios. And I just know Marvin Harrison's going to get, I don't see too many negatives when it comes to the profile right now for who's left.
That week 1 panic feels like forever ago already, doesn't it?
Right? Yeah, it does. All right, Rhett, who you pairing with Kyron?
Rhett doesn't get to make this pick.
Oh,
This is me.
that's right. It's you. That's right. I forgot.
And I don't really care what the guy at 110 did, to be honest with you, because regardless of what they did, I'm taking AJ Brown at this point. I think that once he does come back from injury, I think that he is in for a huge stretch the rest of the way, assuming he can stay healthy. This offense just has not looked the same without him, and I think as soon as he gets back on the field, he's going to remind us just how good he is. So again, this is a perfect time. Go if you're in a good spot to try to make a trade. Go find the AJ Brown manager in your league. See if they are struggling, and see if you can take advantage of them tilting for not having AJ Brown in their lineup. I think he's one of my favorite guys to try to go buy right now. So I'm glad I got to make the pick, because I've been wanting to say that anyway. Now, Rhett, it is on you to make the next pick.
All right, guys, are we ready to get funky?
Oh yeah, let's get funky.
All right, let's get funky, because you have a lot of guys who could be taken in this spot, but there's one very clear quarterback in this situation who just kind of feels like it is above and beyond right now. Guys, I'm having fun. I'm mocking a mock. So if I was going to have fun the rest of the season, let's go Jaden Daniels and let's get cooking, baby. I'm loving Jaden Daniels so far this year. Washington is 3-1. He's completing 80% of passes. The rushing upside is there. I mean, he should only get better, right?
Josh Allen is still QB1 for me. So,
100%. But
I mean,
like I said, we're getting funky. I'm having fun.
Funky is the right way. Is the right way to describe that for sure.
I saw you going to click, and I was just like, "Oh, he has no clue right now."
No, you caught me so off guard. I was ready to click Josh Allen. Like, okay, I get it. He's been doing well. Like, he's a safe pick at this point. Fantasy's been kind of wild. Josh Allen is a mainstay. It's a safe pick, and then you set me through the Hurricane Helen of loops.
Now you're on tilt. Now you're on tilt, baby. Let's go.
Not on tilt from being sniped, though.
No,
on tilt.
If anybody listening has a draft that actually is coming up in the next couple days, and you can do this, probably don't take Jaden Daniels there, because most likely you can probably wait around because other crazy people.
But in all seriousness, though,
but he is the rest of season. I have no problem with that.
That was going to be my question. Like, rest of season, he's your quarterback blank.
4, 3.
Josh Allen's the only one. Josh Allen's the only one like off the rip.
Allen,
I know.
Lamar,
Lamar, because we assume he's going to come good, and he's still the quarterback 2 in scoring right now. Lamar, and then Jaden's quarterback 1 in scoring. So Jaden's probably 3 for me right now.
Yeah. I don't hate the pick, because you get to gloat about this guy, and he has been balling. And he's been so much fun to watch.
He's in shock. Let's keep going. Let's keep rolling.
All right, Nate. What do you, Nate? How do you follow that up, Nate? What are you going to do to follow that up?
You know what? I will follow that up with something, and I think that if I'm talking about crazy every week that he has played. Now this is the gamble. This is the stupid part of this that I just think that I'm getting a little out of control with, because he's played 2 weeks. He's had the 2 running back 1 weeks, and he's missed 2 weeks. And yet here I am avoiding the other running backs because of their injuries. But man, Kenneth Walker has been so good. And I just don't hate the fact that their offense doesn't scare me. I think Geno's more than capable. I feel
Geno's
like if I was really drafting, I know I could wait another round and get him there and take maybe one of the more high upside, low producers right now. But you know what? This is fun. And I want to make sure Kenneth Walker gets his name on there. So Scampers, whenever he sees someone else do it, he's like, you guys let the other redraft shows, we'll leave off Kenneth Walker and he'll ridicule them on our behalf, just without mentioning names.
Skipper says, Jay, damn Daniels.
Yes, sir.
I love that. I love the Kenneth Walker pick. Kenneth Walker is just one of the most fun running backs to watch. Like I don't know how you can turn on a Kenneth Walker tape and not have a good time. Like you would just have to really, really fucking hate your life to not enjoy watching Kenneth Walker run the football. I'm going to go with his teammate here. He's wide receiver 7 on the year so far. Geno Smith has looked incredible. This offense under Ryan Grubb and coming over, bringing those concepts from Washington has looked great. And man, DK Metcalf looks every bit of the grown man that he, appears to be. And so, yeah, for me, he's the next receiver up. He's a guy that I was targeting a lot in drafts. If you go back and look at my rankings compared to the ECR for the draft rankings, DK was a guy I was comfortably ahead of ECR on that. This is a 4-week victory lap, basically, that he is who I thought he was. And so, yeah, I'm taking DK here. The dude's been looking great. And I love that Geno is back to looking like the quarterback that we thought he was as well. Thank God that Shane Waldron is over there cursing Caleb Williams and the Bears, and he's no longer spreading the cancer in Seattle. So that offense has been a lot of fun. And both of these guys, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, they look like they could be, guys that are going to carry the load for you in fantasy down the stretch.
All right, so
good luck.
Are you gonna blow our faces off again or what? Right
no,
now?
I think I'm gonna go a little bit more laid back right here and just go with somebody who's just been rock solid through the first 4 weeks of the season. Let's go with Chris Godwin right here. I mean, one of the top 5 receivers in fantasy football right now, 27 receptions. Yeah. Really, we said it heading into the season that him moving back to the slot was going to do his game a world of good, and they haven't been wrong. Baker's been exceptional so far this season. A lot of that has been having that safety net that is Chris Godwin. So mid-second round, it's hard to go wrong for Chris Godwin right now.
Yeah. I like it. I like that a lot. I'm a Godwin guy, so.
All right. This is where I can do whatever I want as far as make-believe situations and what I think is going to happen, because come draft season, that's all we're doing as well. We're like, do we think that it's going to be Sam Darnold the whole time? No, they'll make they'll eventually bring in someone like Jameis Winston and he will revive Justin Jefferson's bad season he's going to have. Or will it be Daniel Jones? No way. It's going to be Drew Lock that's going to come in and make Malik Neighbors the wide receiver 1. This is where Tyreek Hill's getting traded. The Miami Dolphins just lost Jalen Phillips today. That is, I believe, the final straw on that team's competitiveness for the season. I think this is their opportunity where they're like, screw it. We have Waddle. We're going to just move on. And Tyreek Hill's going to end up on a team, and he's going to be a huge value with a team that has Alvin Kamara at pick number 5.
Okay, man.
And if it doesn't work out, he gets 4 catches. So it sucks.
I mean, he was being drafted at that spot in the first round a month ago. And if not earlier. I mean, he was the 102, 103, 104 in a lot of drafts.
I took him at 102 in my prime time in Vegas. It went CD, then Tyreek, and then CMC. And I obviously wish I had this opportunity where I could have taken Jefferson or Nico or pretty much any of the first round. Would have been better.
Right. Rugaroo. What's up, man? Appreciate you joining us. All right, so this one for me, this guy hasn't really had a bad start to the year, but there's definitely a David Montgomery red zone problem. But I think we kind of knew that was going to be the case. But I think similar to his rookie year, he's just going to get better as the year goes on. And so for me, if I can get Jahmyr Gibbs in the back of the second round with the upside that he holds himself, as well as how good that offense is, And the fact that, they were willing to give Gibbs some goal line touches, some red zone touches as well. I think there's going to be enough to go around for both of those running backs. And so Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that at this point, back into the second round, I'm happy taking. I would, if this was a real draft, I feel really good about taking him at that spot. I'll say that. Rest of the season, he's my 16th overall player right now. So. I think he would be a good spot right there. All right, Rhett, your last pick of this hypothetical woulda, shoulda, coulda draft.
I'm just gonna go with the guy once again. My theme has been kind of just been taking guys who have been rock solid so far. I'm gonna stay with that. He had a heck of an end to his season last year. Was a running back one across the last 6 weeks of the season.
No
signed
pressure.
with the new team this offseason.
Who you need to pick. No pressure.
I know.
If the answer is Aaron Jones, then that's who I'm going with right now.
Okay.
Okay, Aaron Jones. So talk to us about Aaron Jones a little bit.
All right, Aaron Jones averaging 18.1 fantasy points per game so far in full PPR formats. According to the fantasy data scoring, he is number 19 overall in fantasy point scoring. 321 rushing yards and a touchdown, another 16 receptions for 143 yards. So he is getting opportunities all over the field for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, he's been a safety net for Sam Darnold. He's been their reliable guy to carry the ball. He's held off Ty Chandler so far. I mean, it's hard not to like what Aaron Jones has done so far this year. And in the late second round with the production he's had, I mean, it's hard to pass that up.
Okay, interesting. All right, so Nate, do you have another running back in mind? You going in a different direction? What are you doing?
I'm a man of the people. I like to make sure that everybody in the chat
you about to pander here?
I'm gonna pander to scampers. I think that pander has a kind of a cat-like name to it, where I'm gonna do that because I don't believe that Christian McCaffrey is. Despite all this talk about him going to Germany was supposed to be positive because the PRP injections, that's something he can't get here. And that's going to be optimistic. And the only thing he came back with was a diagnosis that we pretty much already knew anyway of bilateral Achilles tendonitis. And at this spot right here, Jordan Mason is just too good of the upside. It reminds me, like we've said for years, it's kind of like, hey, this is where you don't pass up on, maybe it was different situation, but James Conner versus Lev Bell, that second guy up, that if you just roll the dice, you get the production. There's another name I had in mind too, that if you don't
thought about Jordan Mason here. I really did. Like at 210, I was like, oh, is it too soon? Like in a draft, we'll be taking him late second. But this is also coming from the guy who just went Jaden Daniels 2-4. So what the hell do I know?
I do want to hit Drew. Are you going to go running back? Are you going to go receiver? Do you know the position?
I'm going to go running back.
Okay. I wonder if it's the same one. So I'll let you conclude the first ever.
It's between two running backs. To be honest, if I was in a real draft right here, Jordan Mason didn't just go right there way earlier than he should have went. I would probably just like double tap CMC and Jordan Mason and just lock up the 49ers backfield. Assuming that he didn't go right there. So I say that to say I don't think that Jordan Mason's actually a bad pick. But if it was me, I would, James Cook was a guy that I was low on James Cook coming into the year. I thought that Ray Davis was going to factor in more than he has. He's been nothing more than just a give James Cook a break here and there type of player. And he's in an offense where there's not a clear number one, from a pass catching standpoint. I mean, it's Dalton Kincaid one week, Keon Coleman the next, Khalil Shakir the next. But the one consistent has been that James Cook has been there for 50 to 60% of snaps. And I don't love the snaps, but I love the offense, and I love the fact that whenever it gets into business, whenever they need to start really caring, James Cook is in there and he's getting valuable touches. And so for me, it was between James Cook and Devon Achane, because I do think that better days are ahead for Devon Achane as well. But James Cook was a guy, this is kind of me just like similar to Kyron Williams. This is me waving the white flag that I was not a James Cook guy. But I mean, the Bills have told us how they feel about James Cook, and at some point we got to start listening, and so for me, I would take James Cook there. I would take him over Jordan Mason because it was what we talked about earlier. The clock is ticking on Jordan Mason if you believe that CMC is coming back. Now if you don't, if you think that this is a long-term thing for CMC, I've even heard retirement talks and stuff that I don't believe, I won't get into. But if you believe that this is more of a long-term thing for CMC, Jordan Mason should be a first rounder, much less a second rounder. You know, like if you're going to get a stretch out of Mason, so I get taking him there. But yeah, I was not a James Cook guy, but the Bills have been using him. So for me, it was between Devon Achane and James Cook, and then that. I mean that. But that being said, there are some names on the board right now.
Well,
I mean, CMC is the
I would
obvious one, right? But like Devon Achane, Mike Evans, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne,
Garrett
David
Wilson,
Montgomery, Drake
Devontae
London,
Adams,
Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Chris Olave.
any and all tight ends.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh Allen, even like I think that you could make the argument that it gets kind of iffy toward the end of the second round. That like would it be worth investing in a Josh Allen? Who if you were at the back of the second round and you wanted to take a tight end, who's your tight end one rest of the season? Because for me, it's Trey McBride.
Yeah,
it was between McBride and Bowers, only because
that's the name, though.
And I mean, Kittle is worthy of being up there. I mean, we've seen, but Kittle's more dependent on that number one draft spot at this point, only when someone's missing. And we've seen enough of it that between Ayuk and Debo, which are two other names that didn't get mentioned in this, it's still only 2 rounds. It's not shocking, but yeah. And going back to James Cook real quick, I remember in our listener league draft, 5th round, James Cook, or 7th round. Sorry. 7th round, James Cook. And I just in the 7th round, and I just took Kyler in the 6th. And I went, damn it. I should have waited because James Cook was there. And I only had Isaiah Pacheco at the time. And I just waited. And then Paul Ryan right there. And bam, immediately in chat. Wow, what a steal. Great pick. I think it was even Scampers that might have said, great pick, So
yeah, I was such a Ray Davis guy coming into the year, and I still believe in Ray Davis, the player. Like I think that he can carve out a bigger role as the season goes on. I'm still not a huge James Cook guy, but you can't. It's tough to argue with the usage once they get into the scoring situations. Like it's not like the snaps have been like James Cook still isn't a 80-90% snap percentage guy, but he's in there whenever it counts, and so it's tough not to put him into the first 2 rounds. But yeah, I think that for me it's Trey McBride, Brock Bowers as the top 2 tight ends. Kev says Brock Allen Bowers. It's interesting to see that like Brock Bowers probably is the best value at the tight end position because he was going as the tight end 8, 9, 10 in drafts, depending on where you were drafting.
What happens if Devontae Adams is traded? I mean, how much even higher is that?
And that doesn't seem like an if at this point.
No,
it just seems like a win. So like how high can Brock Bowers really climb? He realistically could be the best tight end option rest of season. And again, Brandon Cooks is banged up. We already thought that Jake Ferguson could be the second option in Dallas behind CeeDee Lamb. He looks like he's in a good spot. And Njoku, that the Browns offense certainly hasn't looked great with him out the last couple weeks. So, he once you get beyond Amari Cooper, he could be the second option there in Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy hasn't looked awful, but I mean, it kind of, it's Jerry Jeudy. It is what it is. But I don't know. It's very, very interesting. There's some names that were left off for sure. But yeah, I struggle. Like, if I'm being honest with myself, if this was a real draft, I probably would take Achane over James Cook just because I feel like Achane has more upside. And I think that as the season goes along and assuming that Tua isn't DOA, that I think that Achane has more upside. But with what we know right now, it was between those 2 guys for me. And then I think that Mike Evans should have been in consideration. But, like I said, if this was a real draft and Mason hadn't went right there, I probably would have just double tapped CMC and Mason and just, locked that backfield up with how effective it's been. But yeah, this was a fun exercise though.
Yeah. Drew, you want to go ahead and recap everything for us on the boards before we get out of here for the listeners?
Yeah, real quick. So redraft, Saquon 101, Justin Jefferson 102, Nico Collins 103, Derrick Henry 104, Alvin Kamara 105, CD Lamb at 106, Malik Neighbors 107, Jamar Chase 108, Brees Hall at the 109, Kyron Williams at the 110, Bijan at the 111, Amon-Ra St. Brown at the 112. So that's the first round of our redraft. Jonathan Taylor kicked things off in the second round at the 201, Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 202, AJ Brown at the 203, Jaden Daniels at the 204. you're wild for that, right? Kenneth Walker at the 205, DK Metcalf at the 206, Chris Godwin at 207, Tyreek Hill at 208, and then a running back run to close out the second round with Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, and James Cook.
So yeah, guys, for everybody that tuned in with us tonight, we were long tonight. It's all good. We're so glad you guys hung out with us throughout the hour and a half. My boy Nate can be found at Nate Markham on X/Twitter. Drew can be found at Drew3MR. Fantasy and Frames can be found at Fantasy and Frames. And our boss man, Jorge Edwards, can be found at Jorge Edwards. But right now, you can find him in Florida as he is going live out a dream. He is adopting. He is a father, ladies and gentlemen. We are so happy for him to have that blessing in his life.
Absolutely, man.
Jorge, thank you for everything you've done for us. We're so happy for you right now. Get ready for those sleepless nights and those wonderful days ahead because it goes by way too fast, my man. So if you're watching this tonight, Jorge, we love you. We appreciate you. And we're just so happy that you're getting to be a parent for the first time, dog.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
So for Nate Markham, for Drew Scott, I'm Rhett Manuel. Toodles.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a